This happened about 6 weeks ago and I'm still processing it. Been lurking on this sub for a while, but never thought I'd have my own story to share. Throwaway for obvious reasons. Some background. Divorced 3 years ago after 16 years of marriage. 2 sons, Jake, 17, and Ethan, 15. The split happened during probably the worst timing possible. My company was going through massive layoffs. I was working insane hours trying to keep my job while my ex Leia's mom was dying of cancer. Everything just collapsed. I admit I wasn't emotionally there enough during her mom's final months. I was literally sleeping 4 hours a night trying to keep us financially afloat while also driving her mom to treatments when I could. But according to Leia, I abandoned her emotionally. Whatever. She filed for divorce 6 months after her mom passed. We had 50-50 custody on paper, but over time the boys just stopped showing up for my weekends. Always had some excuse. School project, friend's birthday, sports thing. When they did come over, they'd just sit on their phones the whole time. I figured they were just processing the divorce in their own way and needed space. Fast forward to Father's Day. Hadn't seen the boys in almost 2 months when Leia texted saying they want to take me to dinner. Said they reserved a private room at this Italian place and wanted to reconnect as a family. I was actually excited. Thought maybe we were turning a corner. I show up and immediately something feels off. Not just Leia and the boys, but her parents, her sister and brother-in-law, and 2 couples who were our friends. Really, just Leia's friends who tolerated me. Like 12 people total. Everyone's acting weird, exchanging these little looks. After we ordered drinks, Jake stands up and says he and Ethan have been working on a school project about family dynamics they want to share. The waiter helps them connect a laptop to a projector. I'm thinking it's going to be some family photos or something. Then the title appears, The Man Who Ruined Our Lives, a documentary by Jake and Ethan. I just sat there, couldn't process what I was seeing. Before I could say anything, the video started playing. It opened with Leia talking straight to camera about how she married a man who promised the world but delivered nothing but disappointment. Then cut to interviews with my sons, talking about how I was never there for them. They showed photos of school events, games, birthdays where I wasn't present with sad music playing. They didn't mention half those events happened during my work hours when I was literally keeping a roof over their heads. There was a segment called Empty Promises, listing things I supposedly promised but never delivered. Half that stuff I never promised, like taking them to Europe or buying them cars. We were never in a position for that kind of stuff, and I was always honest about our finances. Worst part was this montage where they'd recorded themselves calling me for help with various things, then showing me not picking up or calling back hours later. No context that I was in client meetings or on deadlines for projects that paid for their lifestyle. The whole thing was narrated by Leia in this calm voice, talking about me like I was some case study in failed fatherhood. Called me emotionally stunted, pathologically selfish, and at one point actually said I lacked the basic human capacity for empathy. The boys added their own comments about how I'd ruined their childhood and abandoned them when things got hard. The final segment was called Moving Forward, where both my sons talked about how they were breaking the cycle of disappointment by officially disowning me as their father. They said they were going to petition the court to change their last names. When it ended, people started applauding. Actually applauding this public humiliation. Everyone was either nodding or looking at me with this disgusting pity. I couldn't speak. My father-in-law raises his glass and says something about Jake and Ethan having the courage to speak their truth and Leia raising them right despite the circumstances. Everyone clinked glasses while I sat there. My hands were shaking so bad I knocked over my water. Leia's sister actually laughed. I finally stood up, looked at my sons, and saw zero remorse. Just cold satisfaction. I said something like, "Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you sharing your perspective." And walked out. Don't even know where those words came from because inside I was screaming. Somehow drove home without crashing. Turned off my phone and just sat in my apartment in the dark. Called in sick to work the next day. First time in like 2 years. For 3 days, I didn't turn my phone on. Didn't check email. Just existed in this weird state trying to process what happened. On the 4th day, I finally powered up my phone and got bombarded with notifications. Over 50 messages from Leia, the boys, and even some of the dinner guests. Leia's messages started angry, real mature, ignoring your sons after they expressed their feelings, but quickly turned panicked. We need to talk ASAP about the boys' tuition payment. The boys sent almost identical texts about how they just wanted me to understand their perspective, but now really needed to discuss financial arrangements for the upcoming school year. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about humiliating me. It was about money. The private school tuition for both boys was due the following week. I'd been voluntarily paying it on top of child support, even though it wasn't required in our divorce agreement. I started checking my accounts and discovered something that made me see red. The college fund I'd been contributing to for the past 3 years, almost $140,000, had been completely emptied 2 months ago. The account required both signatures for withdrawals, but somehow it was gone. Called the bank and found out Leia had forged my signature on the withdrawal forms. The customer service rep sounded uncomfortable as she told me Leia claimed it was for an educational emergency. When I asked what the money was used for, she said the funds were transferred to pay off a credit card in Leia's name. Something in me just snapped. The humiliation, the lies, the manipulation, and now this theft, it was too much. I've always tried to be the bigger person, but that was over. I'm done financing the lives of people who clearly hate me. I'm not usually vindictive, but right now I want them to feel exactly what I felt sitting at that table. The messages keep coming, getting more desperate about the tuition money. They think I'm just going to roll over and write a check after that show. They have no idea who they're dealing with. I'm already making calls to my lawyer, my financial advisor, and a PI recommended by a buddy. I want to know exactly what I'm up against before I make my move. The nice guy died in that restaurant. And honestly, I think they're going to miss him when they see what's coming next. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more real-life updates like this, make sure to subscribe to Once Loyal and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Update 1. Hey everyone! First, I want to say thanks for all the comments and messages on my last post. Didn't expect that kind of response. Some of you asked for updates. So, here's what's been happening since the documentary premiere show. After I found out about the emptied college fund, I decided to dig deeper before responding to any of their increasingly desperate messages about tuition payments. The PI I hired, friend of a friend, charges reasonable rates, started pulling together information while I focused on the financial side. First weird thing, I went through old bank statements and found that for the past year, my child support payments were being deposited into an account I didn't recognize. Called the state agency handling the payments, and apparently Leia had submitted paperwork on my behalf to redirect the deposits. She forged my signature again. The customer service person was like, "Oh, yeah. We just process what comes in. We don't verify signatures or anything." Cool system. So, I'm sitting there staring at these statements, wondering where the hell all this money was going if they were constantly guilting me about being broke. The PI sent me his first report, and holy crap, Leia had been taking expensive weekend trips to Miami and Vegas with her friends while telling the boys I was refusing to pay for their basic needs. There were Instagram photos of her at fancy restaurants and clubs with captions like self-care after another week of doing it all alone and when you have to be both mom and dad. Meanwhile, I'm eating ramen 3 nights a week trying to rebuild my savings after the divorce. The PI also found something that made me want to put my fist through a wall. Leia had created a private Facebook group called Supporting Single Moms where she'd been posting about me for years. Not just venting, which would be whatever, but straight-up lies. Posts about how I refused to help when Ethan broke his arm. I paid the entire medical bill and took off work to drive him to appointments. Posts claiming I forgot birthdays when I have receipts for gifts I sent that they apparently never received. Posts saying I was behind on child support when I've never missed a payment. And all these people, including the family members who were at that dinner, were commenting with stuff like, "You're so strong and he doesn't deserve those amazing boys." And some men just aren't capable of being fathers. These people have known me for almost 2 decades. They've seen me coach Little League and stay up all night with sick kids and work 70-hour weeks to provide for my family. And they just believed whatever Leia was feeding them without ever asking me for my side. The next day, I called the boys' school to ask about some paperwork for the tuition payment. I was stalling. The financial aid office connected me with their counselor, who apparently knew me as the neglectful father. She hesitated when I identified myself, then admitted that Leia had told the school I was emotionally abusive and unreliable. That's why they always called her first for everything, even though I'm listed as equal contact on all the paperwork. I asked if I could see some of the documentation from parent-teacher conferences I supposedly missed. Turns out Leia had been scheduling them during my work hours without telling me, then telling the school I couldn't be bothered to show up. The counselor actually apologized when I showed her emails proving I was never informed about half these meetings. Then I noticed something weird about the school calendar she sent over. There were events marked that I had zero knowledge of. Ethan's debate team finals, Jake's music recital, sports awards. I checked my email, texts, voicemails, nothing. Leia never told me about any of these things, then told the boys I chose not to come. I was so pissed I could barely see straight. But I stayed calm on the phone, asked the counselor to email me the full calendar for the past 2 years. When I compared it with the supposedly identical online calendar Leia had shared with me, there were dozens of discrepancies. She'd been systematically editing out important events before sharing it with me, then telling everyone I was deliberately missing my kids' activities. The PI also found something really messed up. Remember those recorded calls in the documentary where I didn't pick up or called back hours later? The phone logs show they were made when I was either in scheduled meetings that were on our shared family calendar or during my busiest work hours. They deliberately called when they knew I couldn't answer, recorded it, then used it as evidence that I didn't care. By this point, I'm getting like 15 messages a day about the tuition. Leia's tone shifting from angry to panicked to weirdly sweet. The boys sending these obviously coached texts about how they still love me despite everything and just want to move forward as a family. Such obvious nonsense after that public humiliation. I finally called my ex-father-in-law, who's always been reasonable-ish. Figured I'd see what he knew. Big mistake. He immediately started in on how disappointed he was in me for abandoning the family and refusing to support the boys, and how I broke Leia by not being there during her mom's illness. I lost it. Asked him if he knew about the $140,000 Leia stole from the college fund. There was this long pause and he said something like, "That money was needed for family expenses you weren't covering." I laughed and asked if Leia's 3 trips to Miami this year were family expenses. Another long pause. Then he admitted Leia had told everyone I stopped paying child support months ago and they were facing eviction. The documentary was apparently her idea to shame me into taking responsibility. When I sent him screenshots of all my payments, he got quiet. Then he tried to backpedal, saying, "There must be some misunderstanding, Leia wouldn't lie about something so important." I hung up on him. That night, I got an email from Jake. Not a text, an email. Who does that? Asking if I could pay for this prestigious summer program he got into. Cost $7,500. Due date next week. No sorry for publicly humiliating you or anything. Just asking for money like nothing happened. I didn't respond. Instead, I took everything I'd gathered to my lawyer's office. Turns out, Leia's financial nonsense goes way beyond what I initially found. She's been using my information as a cosigner on loans and credit cards. She's been claiming expenses for the boys that I'm supposedly refusing to pay when the reality is she never even told me about them. And she's been telling everyone who will listen that I'm a deadbeat dad while I've been paying above what the court ordered this whole time. My lawyer laid out some options. I could file for custody modification based on parental alienation. I could sue for the stolen money. I could report the fraud to the police. But honestly, none of that felt like enough. These people orchestrated a public humiliation campaign against me, turned my sons against me, stole my money, and damaged my reputation with basically everyone I know. I don't just want legal remedies. I want them to feel what I felt sitting at that table watching that documentary. I want them to understand exactly what they've done. So, I spent the weekend making a plan, a completely legal, but absolutely devastating plan that will hit them where it hurts most. Their finances, their reputation, and their comfortable lifestyle built on lies about me. They think I'm just going to roll over and write another check. They have no idea what's coming. And the best part, I'm going to sit back and watch it all unfold like a documentary of my own. If this story hit home for you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Once Loyal for more raw, real updates. Update 2. Hey everyone. Back with another update on the documentary premiere situation. Things have been moving pretty fast since my last post. So, after gathering all that evidence about Leia's lies and financial fraud, I finally decided to stop ignoring their messages. But instead of responding to the constant texts about tuition money, I sent a calendar invite to both my sons and Leia for a financial planning meeting at a coffee shop near my apartment. No explanation, just date, time, location. They all showed up, which honestly surprised me. Leia looked nervous as hell, while the boys had this weird fake confidence going on. Before anyone could say anything, I placed 3 folders on the table, one labeled with each of their names. Inside each folder was a complete accounting of every penny I'd spent on them since the divorce, including the child support that was being redirected, the college fund contributions, the extra expenses I covered that weren't required by the divorce agreement, and receipts for all the gifts they claimed I never sent. I also included screenshots of Leia's social media posts about her trips and shopping sprees using money that was supposed to be for the boys. The look on their faces as they flipped through these pages. Jake kept glancing at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. Ethan wouldn't even make eye contact with me. Leia tried to snatch the folders away, but I put my hand down on them firmly. I told them very calmly that effective immediately, I would be paying exactly what the court ordered for child support, not $1 more. The money would go into a new account that I set up that would send me alerts for every transaction. Any expenses for the boys would need to be documented with receipts. Jake immediately started in about his summer program and how I was punishing him for expressing his feelings in the documentary. I just looked at him and asked if he actually believed I hadn't been supporting them financially all this time. He got all flustered and said of course he knew I paid child support, but that I was still emotionally unavailable. So I pulled out my phone and showed them the evidence that they deliberately called me during times they knew I couldn't answer. Literal screenshots of their calls coming in during scheduled meetings that were on our shared calendar. Showed them the 2 different school calendars, the real one and the edited one Leia shared with me that omitted their events. Ethan started crying, not like sobbing, but those angry tears when you're caught in a lie. He tried to claim he didn't know about any of this, that his mom had told him I just didn't want to come to his debate competitions. Leia tried to control the narrative, saying I was manipulating the boys and that regardless of the financial situation, I had still emotionally abandoned the family during her mother's illness. I'd prepared for this. I pulled out printed copies of text messages from that time period showing me constantly checking in, offering support, asking what I could do to help. Messages where I literally begged her to let me know if there were appointments I could take her mother to during my lunch breaks. Messages where I offered to use my limited vacation days for her mom's treatments, only to be told, don't bother. You'll just be checking your phone the whole time anyway. Leia tried to grab my phone. I moved it away and she actually knocked over her coffee reaching for it. Started causing a scene in the middle of the coffee shop, yelling about how I was trying to turn her sons against her just like I always did. The barista came over and asked if everything was okay. I just said we were having a family discussion that got a bit heated and maybe we should continue this elsewhere. As we were leaving, I told the boys I was willing to continue supporting their education, but it would be on my terms now. I'd pay their tuition directly to the school, not through Leia. And I'd consider funding special programs like Jake's summer thing, but only if they were willing to rebuild our relationship based on truth, not the lies they'd been fed. Leia tried to pull the boys away, saying they didn't have to listen to this. But Jake actually stood his ground and said he wanted to hear what I had to say. That was the first genuine moment I'd had with him in years. I didn't waste it. I told him I had never stopped loving them, never stopped trying to be part of their lives. I showed them proof that I'd been paying for things Leia claimed I refused to help with. I showed them the forged signatures on the college fund withdrawal. I even showed them the email I sent their school requesting copies of all events and parent nights because I was tired of missing things I was never told about. The boys seemed genuinely shocked. Leia was furious. She grabbed Ethan's arm and practically dragged him out of the coffee shop. Jake hesitated, then followed them, but not before saying he'd call me later. He didn't call. Instead, I got a text from Leia threatening to take me back to court for harassment if I kept poisoning the boys against her. That's when I moved to phase 2 of my plan. Remember that private Facebook group where Leia had been trashing me for years? Turns out one of the members was my cousin's wife, who Leia didn't realize was related to me. My cousin sent me complete screenshots of everything Leia had posted there for the past 3 years. I compiled it all into a document and sent it to Leia's parents, her sister, and the 2 couples who were at that dinner, all of whom had invested money in Leia's side business selling overpriced fitness products. Along with Leia's posts, I included bank statements showing exactly where their investment money had actually gone. Hint: not into inventory or marketing. I also included documentation of how the college fund had been emptied to pay off Leia's credit card debt. Then I contacted the boys' school directly and explained the situation. Showed them evidence that Leia had been systematically preventing me from participating in school events by withholding information. The administration was surprisingly understanding. Turns out they'd had suspicions for a while because Leia's stories about me kept changing. They agreed to start copying me directly on all communications regarding the boys. I also spoke with the summer program Jake wanted to attend. Turns out Leia had already told them I would be paying and had even given them my credit card info for the deposit. I explained the situation, cancelled that card, and said I'd be in touch directly about Jake's participation. Then I did something that might seem petty, but felt so satisfying. I created a shared document with timestamps and evidence of every lie Leia had told about me, every event she'd hidden from me, every dollar she'd misappropriated. I shared it with everyone who had been at that Father's Day dinner. I titled it, "The Man Who Actually Supported His Family, the Documentary They Didn't Show You." Within hours, Leia's phone was blowing up. Her parents called me completely shocked at what their daughter had been doing. They'd given her money several times to help with the boys' expenses when she claimed I wasn't paying. Her father actually apologized to me, said he should have asked for my side before jumping to conclusions. The real fallout came when Leia's business partners discovered she'd been using their investment to fund her lifestyle. They showed up at her house demanding answers. I know this because Jake texted me saying there were angry people at the door and his mom was freaking out. I told Jake to go to his room and stay out of it. Adult problems weren't his to solve. He actually listened to me for once. Later that night, Leia called me screaming about how I'd ruined her life, destroyed her business, turned everyone against her. I just let her rant. And when she finally ran out of steam, I said one thing: "Now you know how it feels." I hung up and blocked her number. Let her communicate through the parenting app the court recommended where everything is documented. The next day, I got separate texts from both boys asking if they could come over. No mention of money or tuition or summer programs. Just wanting to talk. I said yes, but set clear ground rules. No recording, no bringing friends. Just them and me having an honest conversation. They showed up looking like they hadn't slept. We had the most real talk we've had in years. They admitted Leia had been feeding them stories about me for as long as they could remember. The documentary was her idea. She said it would finally make me take responsibility. They actually believed I was refusing to help financially while living some luxury lifestyle. In reality, I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment driving a 10-year-old car. I didn't yell, didn't guilt-trip them. Just showed them the truth and told them I was still their father, still loved them, but wouldn't be manipulated or used as an ATM anymore. Before they left, Jake asked about the summer program again. But this time, instead of demanding money, he asked if I would look at the program details with him and see if it was worth the investment. Progress. I know this isn't over. Leia's not going to just accept losing her financial pipeline and her control over the narrative. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm not just reacting to her moves. I'm finally taking control of my own life back. And honestly, it feels damn good. Make sure you're subscribed to Once Loyal so you catch the next part of this story as soon as it drops. Final update. Hey everyone. Final update on the whole documentary situation. It's been about a month since my last post and a lot has happened. After I exposed Leia's lies to everyone and had that first honest conversation with the boys, things got real quiet for about a week. Too quiet. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And man, did it drop hard. First came the letter from Leia's lawyer claiming I was engaging in parental alienation and financial abuse by cutting off necessary funds for the boys. The irony was insane considering what she'd been doing for years. My lawyer just laughed when I forwarded it to him. Then the school called. Apparently, Leia hadn't paid the remaining balance on last semester's tuition even though I had given her the money months ago. They were threatening to withhold the boys' transcripts, which Jake needed for his college applications. I paid it directly to the school and made sure they knew to only accept payments from me going forward. That weekend, the boys came over again. It was still awkward as hell, but better than before. Ethan asked if I had any old photos from when they were little. I pulled out these albums I'd kept in a storage box since the divorce. We spent like 2 hours going through them and I could see their faces change when they saw pictures of me at events Leia had told them I skipped. Jake got real quiet looking at a photo of me holding him in the hospital when he was born. Said Leia had told him I was out with friends when he was born and only showed up the next day. The photo was time-stamped 10 minutes after his birth. He just stared at it for the longest time. That night, I got a text from my ex-father-in-law asking if we could meet. Figured it would be another guilt trip, but decided to hear him out. We met at this diner near his house. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past month. He admitted that Leia had been lying to them too. She'd told them I refused to help with her mom's medical bills during her cancer treatment. In reality, I'd paid almost $15,000 toward those bills from my own savings. He pulled out his checkbook right there in the diner and tried to pay me back. I refused. Told him that wasn't why I exposed everything. I just wanted the truth out there. He broke down. Said he felt responsible for how Leia turned out. Apparently, her mother had always covered for her lies growing up, and he never put his foot down. He apologized for believing her without ever asking for my side. It was weirdly cathartic to hear, but didn't change what happened. The next day, I got a call from the school counselor. Leia had tried to withdraw the boys and enroll them in public school without notifying me. Since we have joint legal custody, she couldn't do it without my signature. When they refused, she apparently had a complete meltdown in the front office. Later that same day, Jake called me freaking out. Leia had told them they were being kicked out of their house because I froze all the accounts and they would have to move in with her parents. Total BS since I had never touched her personal accounts. Turns out her business partners were suing her for fraud and had gotten a lien against the house, which she had purchased with their investment money. I told Jake they could stay with me if needed. My apartment only has 1 bedroom, but I said I'd sleep on the couch. He seemed relieved, but said Ethan was still on the fence. Then came the real bombshell. Leia showed up at my work unannounced. She'd lost weight. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. My co-workers were staring as she demanded to talk to me. I took her outside to avoid a scene. She broke down completely, switching between begging and threatening me. Said she was about to lose everything, the house, her business, her reputation. She actually had the nerve to ask me to tell everyone I had misunderstood the financial situation and take back what I'd said to her parents and business partners. I just looked at her and asked if she was seriously asking me to lie for her after what she did to me. She got this weird look on her face and said that everything she did was justified because I emotionally abandoned her during her mom's illness. That's when it clicked. This was never really about the boys or money. This was her punishing me for not meeting her emotional needs during an impossible time when we were both stretched to breaking. She couldn't forgive me for working instead of sitting by her side 24/7. So she decided to destroy me as payback. I told her I was sorry I couldn't be everything she needed during that awful time, but that didn't justify years of lies and manipulation. I said I would continue to support our sons, but our relationship was only going to be about co-parenting from now on. Then I walked back inside. That weekend, both boys showed up at my apartment with duffel bags. Leia's parents had taken her to stay with them after she had some kind of breakdown. The house was in foreclosure proceedings, and they didn't want to be there alone. It was tight in my 1-bedroom place, but we made it work. I gave them the bedroom and slept on an air mattress in the living room. We ordered pizza and just talked. Really talked for the first time in years. They had so many questions about the divorce, about their grandmother's illness, about why I worked so much during that time. I tried to be honest without trashing their mom. Told them about the layoffs at my company, about how terrified I was of losing our health insurance while their grandmother was sick, about working 70+ hours a week while also trying to help with hospital visits. Ethan asked why I never fought back against all the lies. Honestly, I didn't have a good answer. I guess I thought if I just kept showing up and doing the right thing, eventually the truth would be obvious. I was naive. The next morning, Leia's father called to say they were admitting her to a treatment facility for depression and anxiety. He asked if the boys could stay with me for a while. I said, of course. That afternoon, we went shopping for some basic stuff they'd need while staying with me. Jake asked if we could look at new shoes, and I noticed he was wearing these completely worn-out sneakers. Said Leia had told them I refused to pay for new clothes and shoes because I was saving for my new family. I've been single since the divorce and definitely don't have a new family. We bought the shoes. While we were out, I got a text from one of Leia's former business partners. She'd found evidence that Leia had been using my personal information to take out loans. She sent me copies of the applications with my forged signature. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and filed a police report for identity theft. Not because I wanted Leia in legal trouble, but because I needed to protect myself financially. The real moment of reckoning came 2 weeks later. Leia was released from the treatment facility and wanted to see the boys. We agreed to meet at a restaurant. Neutral territory. She looked better, more pulled together. The boys were nervous but agreed to hear her out. She started with this clearly rehearsed speech about how sorry she was for any misunderstandings and how she wanted to move forward as a family. The boys just sat there not saying much. Then she dropped it. She expected me to make things right with her business partners and parents so she could get the house back and provide a stable home for the boys. Before I could say anything, Jake spoke up. He asked her point blank about the college fund. Asked why she emptied it to pay off credit cards. Asked why she lied about me not paying for things. Asked why she edited the calendar to hide their events from me. Leia tried to deflect, saying we could discuss all that later, but now it was about what was best for them. Ethan, who'd been quiet this whole time, suddenly asked why she made them create that documentary. Said it felt wrong even when they were doing it, but she insisted it was the only way to make me face reality. Leia completely changed. Started crying, saying they were turning against her just like everyone else. Said after everything she sacrificed for them, they were betraying her. The victim act was something to see. I finally stepped in and said this wasn't productive. Told Leia we needed to focus on what was best for the boys right now, which was stability. I offered to continue housing them while she got back on her feet with regular visitation. She didn't like that at all. That's when she tried her final play. Told the boys if they came home with her, she'd make sure they got to go to Jake's summer program and take that trip to Europe they always wanted. Classic Leia, making promises she couldn't keep. Jake just looked at her and said he'd already registered for a different summer program, one that offered scholarships, and he'd been accepted. He'd done it himself without telling either of us. Kids got initiative. We left that lunch with a tentative agreement. The boys would stay with me for now. We'd look for a bigger place closer to their school, and Leia would have regular visitation once she had stable housing. My lawyer is drawing up the paperwork to modify the custody agreement. Last week, we moved into a 3-bedroom apartment. It's not fancy, but everyone has their own space. I've set up direct payments to the school for tuition. I'm continuing to pay the court-ordered child support even though the boys are with me because I'm not a hypocrite. Leia's parents helped her get a small condo. They've been surprisingly supportive of the new arrangement, probably because they've finally seen who their daughter really is. They stop by sometimes to see the boys, and it's not as awkward as I expected. As for that documentary, the boys deleted all copies of it. Jake's actually taking a real film class now and wants to make a new one about reconstructing a relationship with a parent after years of separation. Not sure how I feel about being his subject again, but at least this time I'll know what's in it before it premieres. I'm not going to pretend everything is perfect. The boys still have moments where they fall back into old patterns, questioning my commitment or doubting my word. Years of programming don't disappear overnight. But we're talking now. Really talking. And Leia, she's still Leia. Still tries to manipulate situations. Still tells different versions of events to different people. But she has a lot less power now. Her business is gone. Her social circle has shrunk. And most importantly, the boys are starting to see through her tactics. The best revenge wasn't the exposure or the financial consequences, or even getting more time with my sons. It was finally standing up for myself and refusing to be anyone's villain anymore. Don't know if there will be more updates after this. We're just living day by day, trying to build something new from the wreckage of what happened. But I wanted to thank everyone who commented and messaged with support. It helped more than you know during the darkest moments. Sometimes the happiest ending isn't riding off into the sunset. Sometimes it's just waking up and realizing you're not carrying that weight anymore. Thanks for watching this full story on Once Loyal. If it resonated with you, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe for more real stories like this one. See you in the next video.